You are not chained to who you were yesterday. The mind is clay, the will is steel, and every day is a forge. Become the architect of your own soul, not the victim of your own excuses. To truly begin the journey of becoming the person you've always wanted to be, you must first strip away the illusions you hold about yourself. This is where most people falter, not because they lack ambition, but because they are afraid to look into the mirror of the mind and see their true reflection. It's easy to look at our strengths and feel proud, but the real transformation begins when we confront the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca warned that no one can improve if they remain blind to their faults. Yet this blindness is often voluntary. We choose to ignore the truth because it threatens our comfort. But comfort is the enemy of transformation. Radical self-honesty means facing the reality of who you are without excuse, without the softening filters of pride or self-pity. It means saying to yourself, yes, I am impatient. Yes, I avoid what is difficult. Yes, I fall prey to anger, to envy, to fear. It does not mean condemning yourself for these flaws. Stoicism is not about self-hatred. It is about clarity. Because until you can name your weaknesses, you cannot begin to master them. Imagine trying to navigate a ship without knowing your location. The destination may be clear in your mind, but without a starting point, you drift endlessly. The same is true for your character. The practice begins with observation. Watch yourself in the ordinary moments of life. How do you react when someone cuts in line? When your plans are disrupted? When someone else gets the recognition you wanted? Do you hide your laziness behind a waiting for the right time? Do you call your procrastination a rest when in truth it's avoidance? Each of these moments is a window into your inner state. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself each morning and night, recording where he fell short and where he remained steadfast. He understood that the only way to grow was to measure himself against his own ideals every single day. The difficulty is that our ego resists this scrutiny. It whispers, "You're already doing enough. You're fine the way you are." And while self-acceptance is a virtue, it must be the acceptance of truth, not of comforting lies. If you tell yourself you are disciplined when you are not, you close the door to improvement. Radical self-honesty requires you to step outside your own narrative and see yourself as if you were observing another person. Would you trust someone who promises great things but never delivers? Would you admire someone who speaks of values yet bends them for convenience? Then why would you tolerate these same inconsistencies in yourself? This is not an invitation to despair. The Stoics saw faults not as fixed traits, but as raw material for shaping. Just as the sculptor sees the roughness of stone not as a flaw, but as something to be worked, you must see your flaws as the starting point of your craft. Every admission of weakness is a chisel strike against the marble of your old self. But the sculptor cannot work with marble he refuses to touch. There will be moments when the truth about yourself stings. You may discover that much of your ambition has been for recognition, not virtue. You may realize that the obstacles you complain about are often the result of your own inaction. Accept these realizations without defensiveness. The pain of seeing yourself clearly is a sign that the old illusions are breaking, and that is progress. Remember, you are not your flaws. You are the one who sees them, and the one who sees them has the power to change them. In this practice, humility is your greatest ally. The moment you believe you are above correction, you are lost. Epictetus reminded his students that no man is free who cannot master himself. To master yourself, you must first be willing to admit that mastery is far away. That admission is not weakness, it is the seed of strength. From there, you can begin the disciplined work of aligning your actions with your principles. Radical self-honesty also means rejecting the temptation to measure yourself against others. The journey is not about being better than your neighbor. It is about being better than your former self. If you compare your discipline to someone less disciplined, you may feel satisfied and stop progressing. If you compare your virtues to someone with greater virtue, You may feel discouraged and quit. Both comparisons are distraction. The only true comparison is between who you were yesterday and who you are today. This level of honesty is not a one-time confession. It is a daily practice. Just as the body requires daily nourishment, the mind requires daily truth. Each night, examine your day as if you were a judge weighing evidence. Where did you act in accordance with your highest values? Where did you fall short? Then make a simple plan for tomorrow, not to punish yourself, but to correct your course. Over time, these small adjustments accumulate, and you will find that the person you wish to be is no longer a distant ideal, but a living reality. Radical self-honesty is the foundation upon which every other principle of transformation rests. Without it, discipline becomes pretension, reflection becomes vanity, and virtue becomes performance. With it, each choice you make is grounded in reality, is the only place where true change can take root. The Stoics knew that we cannot control all that happens in life, but we can control our willingness to see ourselves as we are. That vision, clear and unflinching, is the first step toward becoming the person you've always wanted to be. Once you have stripped away the illusions and faced yourself with unflinching honesty, the next step is to take command of your actions. This is where discipline becomes the compass, and desire, though often loud and persuasive, must take its rightful place as a servant, not a master. The Stoics understood that the impulses of the moment are like waves. They rise high, crash hard, and vanish. Discipline, on the other hand, is the steady current beneath the surface, carrying you toward the shore you have chosen, regardless of the storms above. Desire is not evil in itself. It is natural to want comfort, recognition, pleasure, and ease. But when those desires dictate your actions, they turn from harmless visitors into rulers who enslave you. Epictetus likened an undisciplined person to a slave obeying many masters, each craving pulling them in a different direction, leaving them exhausted and scattered. The disciplined person answers to one master, reason, guided by principle, does not bend to every impulse. This is why discipline is not about denying all pleasure or living a life of grim self-denial. It is about choosing actions based on what is right and necessary, not on what feels good in the moment. When you live by discipline, you are no longer at the mercy of moods. A bad day does not stop you from doing what must be done. A burst of excitement does not make you abandon your commitments for some new, shiny distraction. You become reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. Discipline requires structure. Without it, the best intentions dissolve into inconsistency. The Stoics would craft their days deliberately. Marcus Aurelius would rise early, reminding himself that his purpose was not to lie in bed, but to serve the duties of a human being. He understood that the body will often protest, whispering that it needs more rest, more ease, more delay. But discipline listens to reason, not to excuses. When the mind is in command, the body follows. This is where the battle between discipline and desire is most visible, when the short-term temptation collides with the long-term goal. You say you want to become stronger, but your desire offers you the comfort of the couch. You say you want to grow wiser, but your desire tempts you with idle entertainment instead of study. In these moments, you must remember, desire speaks in the language of now, but discipline speaks in the language of forever. If you choose discipline today, you gain a freedom tomorrow that desire can never give you. The key is to make discipline a habit so ingrained that it no longer feels like a constant struggle. In the beginning, it will. You will wrestle with yourself daily, sometimes hourly, and there will be moments when you lose. That is part of the process. The Stoics would not have you despair over such defeats. They would have you stand back up, take the lesson, and return to the path. A single lapse does not destroy a disciplined life, but surrendering to the comfort of lapses will. Discipline also demands that you decide in advance how you will act in certain situations, so you are not negotiating with yourself in the heat of temptation. If you tell yourself, I will work out 3 times a week, then when the moment comes, there is no debate. You simply follow the plan. Negotiation is where desire wins. Because desire is skilled at finding reasons to delay, discipline removes the argument before it begins. It is important to see that discipline is not meant to make life smaller, but larger. The undisciplined life may feel free because it follows every whim, but it is actually narrow, trapped in the limits of momentary pleasure. The disciplined life opens doors. It allows you to pursue ambitions that require consistency and effort. It gives you the strength to endure hardship without breaking. It builds a foundation of self-respect because you can trust yourself to follow through on what you set out to do. And yet discipline is not just about the big goals, the career, the health, the mastery of a craft. It lives in the smallest choices, how you spend your idle minutes, how you respond to a rude word, how you keep your space in order. Every time you choose principle over impulse, you strengthen the muscle of discipline. And just like a muscle, it grows with use. The small victories prepare you for the larger tests. This is why the Stoics warned against being ruled by appetites. Appetite does not only mean hunger for food. It is the hunger for approval, for control, for comfort, for indulgence in any form. If you let these hungers guide you, they will consume you. But when you train yourself to act according to reasoned choice rather than immediate gratification, those same desires lose their grip. They may still speak, but they no longer command. A disciplined life is not built in a day. It is carved slowly with patience and persistence. You may stumble, you will certainly be tempted, but with each act of discipline, you are shaping yourself into someone stronger, steadier, more capable of living according to your deepest values. And when the storms of life come, as they always do, it will not be desire that keeps you standing. It will be the discipline you have forged through countless quiet victories. In this way, discipline becomes the bridge between who you are and who you wish to be. Desire will always be with you, but it need not rule you. The Stoic does not seek to erase desire entirely, but to master it, placing it in service of a greater purpose. For when reason is captain and discipline is the wind, the ship of your life sails toward the shore of your choosing, no matter how restless the seas. Once you have been honest with yourself and brought discipline under your command, you must turn your attention to where your energy goes. This is where many people lose themselves, not because they lack effort, but because their effort is scattered across battles they can never win. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Most of our suffering is born not from what happens to us, but from our attempts to control the uncontrollable. When you pour your energy into the things you cannot change, you drain the strength that could have been used to transform what you can. Epictetus began his teaching with a simple truth: some things are up to us and some things are not. Our thoughts, our choices, our actions, these belong to us. The weather, the past, the opinions of others, these do not. Yet how often do we find ourselves wrestling with the immovable, shouting at the tide as if our voice could push it back? We argue with the past, we beg the future to obey us, and in doing so we abandon the one realm where our influence is absolute, our own mind. To focus on what you control is to reclaim your sovereignty. It is to draw a clear border around your mental kingdom and say, here is where I have power, and here is where I will place my attention. When you do this, the noise of the world begins to quiet. Other people's actions may still be unjust, but you stop surrendering your peace to them. Misfortune may still strike, but you stop treating it as a personal betrayal. You begin to live with a kind of steady strength because your well-being no longer depends on forces outside your reach. This does not mean you become indifferent to the world or withdraw from life. The Stoics were not hermits. They were leaders, generals, emperors, teachers. They acted decisively where they could make a difference, but they also knew how to release what was beyond their grasp. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in times of war, plague, and political betrayal. Yet his writings show a man constantly returning to the same truth. You cannot control the actions of others, only how you respond, and in that response lies your freedom. The mind that fixates on the uncontrollable becomes restless and resentful. It spends its days waiting for others to change, for circumstances to improve, for the world to align itself with its preferences. This waiting is a kind of prison because it postpones life until a condition is met, a condition that may never come. But when you focus on what you control, you step out of that prison. You stop waiting and you start living now, working with the tools and materials you actually have. Consider the storms of life. You cannot stop the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You cannot dictate the path of the clouds, but you can decide whether to walk in the rain with bitterness or with calm acceptance. This is not passive surrender, it is active mastery. The person who rages against the storm loses twice, once to the storm itself, and once to the turmoil in their own mind. The one who accepts the storm loses nothing because their peace was never placed in the weather to begin with. Focusing on what you control also changes the way you approach challenges. Instead of seeing them as injustices, you see them as invitations. You cannot control that the obstacle appeared, but you can control how you meet it, whether with fear, with hesitation, or with resolve. The Stoic turns obstacles into opportunities for virtue. If someone insults you, you cannot control their words, but you can control whether you meet them with anger or with patience. If a plan collapses, you cannot control the loss, but you can control whether you collapse with it or stand and begin again. This mindset requires constant vigilance. The pull of the uncontrollable is strong, and the world offers endless chances to waste your attention on it. News cycles, gossip, the unpredictable behavior of strangers, all of these can consume your thoughts if you let them. The Stoic discipline is to pause and ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, you let it go of a stone that is too heavy to carry. Not because it is unimportant, but because carrying it will not change it, and it will only weaken you for the tasks that are yours to perform. There is great relief in living this way. You stop trying to play the role of the universe, and you return to the role that is actually yours. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer tangled in what-ifs and if-onlys. Your actions become more effective because they are directed toward what you can truly influence, and your spirit becomes steadier because it no longer rises and falls with the unpredictable tides of fortune. In time, this practice creates an unshakable center within you. You become someone who can move through chaos without being consumed by it, not because the chaos is gone, but because you have learned the art of distinguishing between what belongs to you and what does not. This is what the Stoics meant by true freedom. Not the freedom to make the world obey you, but the freedom to remain yourself, regardless of what the world does. When you focus on what you control, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You stop being at the mercy of other people's moods and decisions. You stand in the space that is yours and you make the most of it. And as you do, you find that the person you are becoming is not just stronger, but calmer, because your life is no longer a constant fight against the impossible. It is a steady walk along the path you have chosen, with your mind clear, your will intact, and your energy invested where it can actually change something. Once you have trained yourself to focus only on what is within your control, the next realization is that not all adversity is an enemy. The world will hand you trials and you can spend your life resenting them, or you can see them as the raw material from which strength is made. This is where the Stoic path diverges sharply from the ordinary way of thinking. Most people believe progress comes from ideal conditions, clear skies, smooth roads, friendly winds. But the Stoics knew that without resistance, the soul grows soft. Just as the body becomes strong only by meeting weight with effort, the character becomes resilient only by meeting hardship with courage. Every obstacle, every frustration, every unexpected blow is a force. You may not have asked for it, you may not have planned for it, but it is here, and it is yours to use. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This was not poetry to him. It was a way of surviving the crushing weight of ruling an empire while facing war, betrayal, and disease. He did not look at his problems as interruptions to life. He looked at them as life itself. This mindset transforms your relationship with hardship. Instead of waiting for obstacles to pass so you can get back on track, you begin to treat the obstacle as part of the track. The delay in your plans forces you to learn patience. The betrayal of trust forces you to sharpen your judgment. The failure of a project forces you to innovate. Without these disruptions, you might never have developed the very qualities that will carry you forward. This does not mean you seek out suffering for its own sake, nor that you pretend to enjoy pain. The Stoics were not masochists. They simply recognized that pain, frustration, and loss are inevitable, and that to waste them is a greater loss still. If you must endure something, let it teach you. If you must carry a burden, let it make you stronger for the next one. Consider a fire. Throw wood on it and it burns brighter. Throw in wet branches and it learns to burn hotter still. This is the way of the Stoic spirit. It takes whatever is fed to it and uses it as fuel. To meet an obstacle in this way is not to deny its difficulty, but to refuse its power to make you smaller. Every time you turn hardship into growth, you reclaim the control that life seemed to take from you. Of course, in the moment, this is not easy. When the weight is heavy, the first instinct is to curse it. When the path is blocked, the first thought is to turn back. But discipline and perspective, built through the earlier steps, allow you to pause and ask, what is this here to teach me? How can this be used? That question shifts you from a passive sufferer into an active participant in your own transformation. You will notice that the people you admire most are not those who had the smoothest path, but those who endured and grew in the face of trials. A hero without hardship is just a comfortable spectator. The strength we respect in others is almost always forged in moments when retreat would have been easier, but they chose instead to step forward. When you train yourself to see obstacles as opportunities, you join their company, not because you avoid pain, but because you choose to use it. There is also a quiet humility in this practice. You begin to understand that life owes you no perfect conditions. The Stoics did not spend their days demanding that the world arrange itself to their liking. They accepted that storms will come, that roads will wash out, that allies will sometimes fail them, and in that acceptance they found freedom. Because if you do not demand a perfect path, you are ready to walk any path. Even setbacks that seem purely destructive can carry within them the seed of transformation. The loss of a job may reveal a resilience you didn't know you had. A relationship ending may strip away illusions that were holding you back. Illness may teach you gratitude for moments you once took for granted. None of these things are pleasant, but pleasantness is not the measure of their worth. The measure is whether you come out of them sharper, stronger, and more grounded than before. In time, this approach changes not just how you respond to adversity, but how you meet it when it appears on the horizon. Instead of shrinking back in dread, you begin to stand a little taller, knowing that whatever it brings, you will find a way to use it. This does not make the difficulty lighter, but it does make you heavier, more substantial, more anchored in your values. You stop seeing life as something that must go your way in order for you to be at peace. You start seeing life as a partner in your growth, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh, but always giving you the material to shape yourself. This is the reason the Stoics could face loss and still find purpose, could face defeat and still rise. They understood that the road to becoming the person you have always wanted to be is paved not just with victories and comforts, but with the stones of trial and the weight of challenge. To waste those stones is to waste the very material that builds you. And so the next time you meet an obstacle, do not ask only how to get around it. Ask how to be shaped by it. For when you do, you will find that the very thing that threatened to break you has become the reason you stand unshaken. After you have learned to see yourself clearly, mastered the rule of discipline, fixed your attention on what you can control, and turned obstacles into fuel, the next step is to stop postponing the life you want to live. Too many people carry their ideal self like a distant dream, something they imagine arriving at after a certain age, a certain achievement, or a certain amount of preparation. But the truth is that the person you wish to be is not waiting somewhere far ahead. That person can only exist in the choices you make now. The Stoics never spoke of transformation as a future event. They spoke of living with virtue in the present moment because the present is the only place where action is possible. We often tell ourselves that we will become stronger, calmer, wiser later. We will be patient when life settles down. We will be disciplined once the perfect routine appears. We will be courageous after we feel ready. But a later is a mirage. When it comes close, it disappears into another later. This is why Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to waste what remained of life in hesitation. If you know the values you wish to embody, then every moment you delay living by them is a moment you live out of alignment with yourself. Living as your ideal self now is not about pretending you have already achieved perfection. It is about practicing the qualities you admire, even if you are still clumsy at them. If you want to be a person of patience, then act with patience today in the smallest inconveniences. If you want to be disciplined, then follow through on one commitment right now, without negotiation. If you want to be courageous, then speak the truth once today, even if your voice trembles. Each act is a vote for the person you wish to become. With enough votes, that person is no longer an idea. You have become them through repetition. This approach demands that you stop waiting for the right mood, the right environment, or the right approval from others. You will not always feel like the person you want to be. Some days you will feel tired, distracted, unmotivated. But if you only live your principles when it is easy, they are not principles. They are conveniences. The Stoic lives their values regardless of conditions, because values are not decorations to be worn when the weather is fair. They are armor for every season. There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens when you begin living as your ideal self. You stop seeing your current self as someone incomplete, waiting for permission to start. You realize that the path is not a long stretch of preparation followed by transformation. The path is transformation in motion. Each decision is both the journey and the arrival. You do not work toward being virtuous. You are virtuous in the act of choosing what is right here and now. Living this way also frees you from the trap of conditional identity. Many people tell themselves they will be confident once they succeed, they will be generous once they are wealthy, they will be kind once others are kind to them. But the Stoic reverses the order. You become confident by acting with confidence now, generous by giving now, kind by choosing kindness now. Waiting for circumstances to make you the person you want to be is like waiting for the wind to carve a statue. It will not happen. You must take up the chisel yourself. You will face resistance both from within and without. Your old habits will whisper, "You've never done this before. This isn't you." People who are used to your former self may question or even mock your new way of living. But remember, their version of values is built on the patterns you've shown them in the past, not on the potential you hold in the present. You are not bound to remain the person they think you are. The moment you choose differently, you begin to reshape not just your life, but their expectations of you. The beauty of living as your ideal self now is that it does not require grand gestures. You do not need to change everything overnight. The ideal self is forged in countless small acts of alignment. Choosing to read instead of scroll, to speak calmly instead of react harshly, to finish the work you promised instead of putting it off. These choices may feel insignificant, but they are the threads that weave the fabric of your new life. And as the days pass, something subtle happens. The line between the self you are practicing and the self you wanted to become begins to fade. At first, you may still think of it as acting like the person you wish to be, but with time, it stops feeling like acting. You are simply being. The virtues that once felt awkward become natural, even effortless. Others will notice it before you do. They will see the calm in your face, the steadiness in your decisions, the quiet strength in your actions, and they will assume you have always been this way. Only you will know how deliberate the change has been. The Stoics taught that life is not measured by the length of our days, but by how we use them. If you wait to live as your highest self until you believe the conditions are perfect, you may reach the end without ever beginning. But if you choose to live that way now, even imperfectly, then every day, no matter its difficulties, becomes a day lived as the person you aspired to be. In the end, there is no separation between the journey and the destination. The ideal self is not something you arrive at after years of preparation. It is something you bring into being in every decision you make, starting now. And once you understand that, you see there is no reason to wait. Not for the right time, not for the right feeling, not for the world to give you permission. The life you want is built in the moment you are in, and the person you have always wanted to be is waiting for you, not tomorrow, but here. When you begin to live as your ideal self now, you will soon realize that this is not a one-time choice, but a commitment that must be renewed each day. The person you wish to become is not carved in stone in a single act of will. It is shaped gradually, through countless small refinements, each guided by awareness. This is why the Stoics place such importance on daily reflection. Without it, you risk drifting away from your principles without even noticing. With it, you keep yourself aligned, course-correcting as needed, just as a skilled navigator adjusts to the shifting wind. Daily reflection is not about dwelling on mistakes with guilt, nor about congratulating yourself endlessly for successes. It is about honest evaluation, the same radical honesty that began your transformation, now applied regularly so you can see where you are truly standing. Seneca advised his students to review the day each night, asking what they did well, what they could have done better, and what they will improve tomorrow. This simple habit transforms each day into a lesson, ensuring that time does not merely pass but teach. In practice, this reflection might take only a few quiet minutes. You sit with yourself without distraction and replay the day. Where did you live according to your values? Where did you let anger, fear, or laziness take the lead? Where did you hold to discipline even when it was difficult? Where did you allow your attention to wander toward what you cannot control? These questions are not weapons to beat yourself with. They are tools to sharpen your awareness. It is tempting to skip this practice when the day has gone bad. On such days, the mind whispers that it would be easier to look away, to avoid the discomfort of seeing your flaws. But the days when you fall short are the ones most in need of examination. A single day of undirected action can turn into a week into a month, and soon you find yourself wondering how you drifted so far from the path. Reflection keeps you anchored. It also helps you notice progress that you might otherwise overlook. Change often happens so slowly that you fail to see it in the moment. But when you reflect daily, you catch glimpses of growth. Moments where you responded with calm instead of frustration, where you stayed steady under pressure, where you acted with kindness when it would have been easier to be cold. These moments are proof that the work is taking root. They remind you that transformation is not only possible, but already underway. Reflection is not limited to the evening. The Stoics also practiced anticipation in the morning. Marcus Aurelius would begin his day by reminding himself of the challenges ahead, that he would meet selfishness, ingratitude, arrogance, and ignorance. By preparing his mind for these encounters, he reduced the shock when they came. This forward-looking reflection complements the backward-looking kind, creating a full cycle. In the morning, you set your course. In the evening, you review how well you followed it. Through this rhythm, you train yourself to live deliberately. Life no longer sweeps you along in a blur of reaction. You become an active participant in shaping your thoughts, your actions, your character, and in this way, each day becomes a self-contained work of art, designed, executed, and then studied for improvement. Some days you will look back with satisfaction. Others you will see a list of moments where you fell short. But here is the gift of daily reflection. Each morning you wake, you are given another chance to live better. You are not condemned to repeat yesterday's mistakes unless you choose to ignore them. The Stoics believed that as long as life remains, the work of shaping the self remains too. There is no point of final arrival where you can stop. There is only the ongoing practice. This practice demands humility. You must be willing to admit every day that there is room for improvement. Pride resists this truth. It wants to believe you have already mastered yourself, but mastery without maintenance decays. Reflection is the maintenance of the soul. It keeps the mind clear, the will sharp, and the character upright. And yet daily reflection is not only about correcting flaws. It is also about deepening gratitude. When you review the day, you notice not just what went wrong, but what went right. The small kindnesses you received, the opportunities you had to act with virtue, the moments of beauty that passed quietly while you were busy. Gratitude reinforces the sense that even in difficulty, life offers more than it takes. It keeps you from becoming so focused on self-improvement that you forget to appreciate the good already present. Over time, this constant cycle of observation, adjustment, and gratitude shapes you in ways that feel natural rather than forced. The habits you are building become part of who you are. The patience you once had to summon deliberately becomes your default reaction. The discipline you once wrestled with becomes second nature. And the clarity you once had to search for becomes the lens through which you see the world. This is the quiet power of daily reflection. Just as small investments grow into wealth over time, small acts of self-examination and adjustment grow into a life lived with intention and strength. You may not notice the change in a week or a month, but look back after a year, and you will see the distance you have traveled, not in miles, but in character. In the end, this is how you become the person you have always wanted to be. Not in one grand leap, but in thousands of small steps taken with awareness and corrected when they falter. Each day offers a chance to practice, to fail, to learn, and to try again. Each night offers the chance to see where you stand, and with each sunrise you begin anew, still imperfect, but still committed, walking forward with a little more wisdom, a little more strength, and a little more peace than the day before. The life you seek is not promised by tomorrow. It is forged today in the choices you make now. So stand, act, and let the person you have always wanted to be step forward and live.